Seventh grade, today we're dealing with fish. Fish are the second vertebrate group that we deal with. Hopefully you remember what yesterday's was, talking about what got you into that chordate group. Alright, so we're talking about fish today, and we look at some of their characteristics. One characteristic is that they have fins. They're a fan-like structure for steering, balancing, and movement. It's literally like if you took your fingers here and we put webbing between them. They allow them to move the water better, and that's why they're fan-like. Characteristics. They have scales. They are hard, thin plates that cover and protect the body. Alright? This is where some people got ideas for armor and other items, but they layer over one another and they make a surface that's hard to penetrate. Now, growth rings on scales can tell the age of fish, much like growth rings on trees can tell the age of the tree. So that's an interesting fact that you may know. Lateral line. When we talk about their lateral line, that's pretty important. It is a sensory organ. So that means one of our five senses, this one is actually like touch. It allows the fish to detect movement. So if you've ever wondered why you tap on the glass, the fish freaks out, it's not because of the movement of your finger, it's the movement of the water from you hitting the glass. And don't do that. It's not nice to the fish. The lateral line goes down the fish, usually from the gills back, and they're more visible on some fish than on others. Characteristics. We're looking at their circulatory system now. When we look at it, you can see the different colors. All right, one talks for flow out, one talks for flow back, and we go on from there. We're going to notice with their characteristics about the heart, it is a two-chambered heart. There's the atrium and the ventricle. You may have heard those before, people talking about their own hearts. Yes, except ours are a little more complicated than the fish's. All right. It's less complex than mammals, like I just said. And it does not put as much oxygen into the blood because there's not as much pumping power. So the ventricle sends blood out. The atrium takes in blood and sends it past the lungs to get more oxygen so the ventricle can send it out. All right? These capillaries are places that it goes to disperse the oxygen and to take away what the body doesn't want. So the blood pumps out to the areas, distributes what it needs to, takes the bad that it doesn't, and then pumps back to the heart where those things can be gotten rid of, and then we can exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide with the lungs and go and do it again. Now, characteristics about the heart, here's a few more. About the gills. They exchange carbon dioxide and CO2. So, we pump the blood out, it gets oxygenated, so the CO2 is let into the gills, and the oxygen comes into the blood, it goes out to the rest of the body, it disperses that oxygen, and then does not have any oxygen, but has CO2 in it, comes back to the hearts, pumped back to the gills, and the cycle repeats. Here's a look at the gills. You can see the gills right here. They're feathery, they want as much water to get over them. This view I like a lot better. Hopefully you're not too squeamish because you see multiple layers, and as the water goes by, they can pull the oxygen out of that water. That's what they're designed to do. Feeding adaptation. Filter feeding. That is where they take in much water and then they filter out those small individual animals or teeny tiny animals that are there. I think that is a basking shark. It is one of the well-known filter feeders. One adapted teeth. So you may have something like this, or you may have a beak. Each of these has a different job or a different way that they eat, and their mouth parts or their adapted teeth help them do that. Electric shock. Eels have this, and it allows them to use their sensory organs to create electric shock that stuns fish near them, and then they have easy prey to eat. Spitting, the archer fish. knocking bugs off of plants in the Amazon River, having them fall into the water, where it can then eat them. Reproduction. To be an animal, it has to be sexual, so we'll talk about how that happens. It is external fertilization, means outside the body. Spawning. Egg and sperm meet in the water. During spawning season, yes, you will see all the extra stuff that's in the water. Salmon and most bony fish spawn. That is how they reproduce. Internal fertilization. There's some of that going on as well. Egg and sperm meet inside the female. All right? There is sexual organs, and the egg and sperm meet inside that female, and she has a gestational period. Sharks and guppies, all right, they don't seem a lot alike, but they do have this characteristic in common. Types of fish. Now, there's 3 main groups. There are more species than all the other groups of vertebrates. So these are like the insects of the vertebrate group. There are so many species in fish, it'll be hard to name them all. We have our jawless fish. Notice that's red. They do not have jaws, but have many little teeth, and usually they're around in a circular pattern. There's the jawed cartilaginous. Cartilage, that's what sharks and rays and other things are made of. You can notice the groups in this species. And then we have our bony fish, whether they're in tropical waters or in our fresh waters. This item here shows the breakdown of the different species by group. The jawless fish, we see them all right here. Not a very big group. Some people think they're ancient and evolutionary. They were the first ones. Jawed cartilaginous fish. That is another portion of them, but not very much. But as you look at the bony fish, you can see that that is the largest group, and it has the most species. All right. So we talk about jawless fish real quick. No scales. Tube-like body. Parasitic. Examples: lancelots, lampreys. It's the item on the fish, not the fish itself. And a hagfish, which are pretty disgusting creatures. We go to jawed cartilaginous fish. Movable jaws are the biggest thing. If you've ever watched Discovery or Shark Week or anything like that, you see when they go to bite, it almost is as if these teeth go out to grab on and pull back. Scales like teeth. They do have that rough type shape, and you'll see back on the earlier slide that these are now kind of getting a 3D view to them. That's why you can rub your hand one way down a shark, but if you go the other way, it feels very rough and can even harm you. Examples: rays, skates, and sharks. Bony fish, this largest group we talked about. They have an endoskeleton of bone. They have a swim bladder. So, the endoskeleton right here. There's a skeleton by which their muscles pull against, and that allows them to move. The air bladder, usually in the center of the body, it allows them to control their buoyancy. So, the air bladder, they fill it with air, they dive to the depth they want, and they get rid of the air that they don't need, so they can easily stay at that depth. That is what a swim bladder or air bladder does for the fish. All right, you can see the actual examples here. You can see kind of where they're located on that vertical view or on the side view. The bony fish types. We have the lobed fin fish. These are the ones that scientists go crazy about because they're thought to be the ancestors of amphibians because they do have this ability to crawl up on the ground. All right? When you see them crawl, they don't look so pronounced as this. They're trying to show that evolutionary connection, which we do not believe because we believe in creation. Lobed-fin fish, thought to be ancestors to the amphibians. Lungfish, another interesting one. They can breathe air and they can breathe water. All right, another one that evolutionists really like to hearken to and say, hey, this is a transitionary species from one species to another. All right? They do have gills and lungs and can survive in both locations. Maybe that's just an adaptation God made for this animal because of their environment. Then we have the ray-finned fish. You can see the ray fins, you can see the ray fins, you can see the ray fins. Think of like fingers with that webbing in between. All right? Fins of bone and skin, they're the common fish that we think of each and every day when I say fish. All right, guys and gals, that's the one you've been waiting for. All right, have a good rest of the day.